Hello, my name is Agnieszka Kubal and I'm the PI on the project HuRiEE, who are the humans behind the human rights in Eastern Europe and Russia. The project explores the unprecedented human rights mobilization in 5 countries: Poland, Hungary, Romania, Russia and Ukraine, whose citizens brought over 50% of all the claims to the European Court of Human Rights. In the project, we tried to understand why does it happen. And in order to answer that question, we actually had to go back to see at the historical developments of the concept of human rights in those countries. To do that, we looked at the Helsinki Accords and how the human rights movement developed in those countries under the socialism. So today in this vlog, we will be actually talking about one of the Helsinki movements in Central and Eastern Europe, in Ukraine. And that will be told by my research assistant, Hania Olinik. Over to you, Hanna.
Thanks, Agnieszka. The Helsinki Accords were a major diplomatic agreement during the Cold War, signed in 1975 by the USA, Canada, and almost all the countries in Europe. The Accords covered a number of controversial questions. For example, one of the main arguments of the Accords was about the recognition of the borders in Europe, including the Baltic states, independent states that had been invaded by the Soviet Union during the Second World War. The Accords also made a number of promises around the legal access to civil and human rights, including many rights that were denied to people across the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. The Helsinki Accords weren't binding, as it wasn't a treaty that the governments ratified, but it was an important symbolic moment for the region.
What were the Helsinki groups and what did the Helsinki Accords actually mean for the people on the ground? After the Helsinki Accords were signed, different Helsinki groups developed in various Eastern European and Western countries, but also in many of the Soviet republics, including in Ukraine. These groups varied hugely in terms of the people who participated in them, in terms of their actions, in terms of the type of reporting on human rights issues they provided. And one of the aims of the project is to really document the rich works of those groups in human rights agenda, in pursuing the human rights agenda in Central and Eastern Europe under communism.
In November 1976, the Ukrainian Helsinki Group was formed, one of the first ever human rights watchdog organizations in the Soviet Union. It was the second Helsinki Watch Group in the USSR and first national and not Soviet group. The Moscow Group was formed earlier, but officially covered the entire Soviet region, not just the Russian Republic. The Ukrainian group was organized by 10 people out of the 48 million citizens of the Ukrainian Soviet Republic. 6 of the 10 members had already been imprisoned in the past for their dissident activism, and so they were very well aware of the risks they were taking. Over the 1976 and 1988, they enlisted 40 members, many of whom joined from the prison or exile, and therefore became the largest of the Soviet Helsinki groups. The group focused on drawing attention to human rights abuses, not just in the present day, but from the creation of the Soviet state, including the genocide of Ukrainian people through the Holodomor famine of 1932 and 1933. They also worked to highlight the rights of political prisoners. For example, legally, Ukrainians convicted for the first time should have served their sentences in the Ukrainian Republic, unless there are some exceptional cases. In reality, however, most of the political prisoners were sent to remote regions of Russia. Finally, they also conducted advocacy internationally through the Ukrainian diaspora, international human rights organizations, and former group members sent into exile. This advocacy reached as far as US President Ronald Reagan, who issued a proclamation in 1982 honoring the importance of the group. However, despite this, the group was especially vulnerable, even compared to groups in other Soviet republics. This was true for two reasons. First, no foreign media officers or correspondents were accredited to work in Kyiv. And secondly, because the Soviet government in Moscow was very anxious about the possibility of Ukrainian independence. However, it was very important for the group to work openly. When they published their charter, all the group's members agreed to put their names and postal addresses on their first declaration. In 1977 and 1978, the group was subject to many official searches, and by the end of the 70s, almost all members were arrested, imprisoned, and exiled.
This is just a brief overview of the Ukrainian Helsinki group and its background. Just to give you a gist of what the project is doing at the moment, but we will soon have another vlog coming, focusing particularly on the role of women in the Ukrainian Helsinki group. So watch the CIS website for further updates. See you in the later vlog. Bye!